What's up, guys? I think we're live here. NFL Week 1, ready to go. It's been a long wait, but ready for Week 1 here. And I'm going to do some trends for Week 1 and then answer any questions you guys have. So if you guys are in the chat there, feel free to ask any questions. I'll kind of go over some guys I like and some picks. We'll start off with my picks that I sent out this week in my video and in my email. So you can see there on the screen, my video picks were Aaron Rodgers to Adams. These are all GPP picks. So for cash game, I won't be going with that stack, but it's my favorite GPP stack. So Rodgers to Adams. David Johnson, I'm going to try to jam in as many lineups as I can. Montgomery is a GPP play for me. When I'm not playing Rodgers, I'll be throwing Montgomery in some lineups. Rashard Matthews, I think is a great play at his price. AJ Green is maybe my favorite high-priced receiver. Zach Ertz, very popular tight end, but definitely worth playing in both GPPs and cash games in my opinion. Bengals D is my favorite cheaper defense. I don't like too much under them, but they're 3,100. A lot of the top defenses are around 3,500 and above for the most part. Texans, Jaguars, Steelers, Bills, all are good choices up there, but if you want to save some money, I like the Bengals. And then some other picks that I emailed out as well. We got Mariota. I like him quite a bit. I kind of like him in cash with Matthews. I think it's a good cheap stack, relatively cheap. Stafford, good GPP play in my opinion. I like him with Tate quite a bit. McCoy, again, probably pretty popular, but I like him quite a bit at that price. Hyde is a great cash game play in my opinion at that price. Zay Jones is one of my sleeper picks at receiver. If I'm not going to play McCoy, looks like I'm having troubles with my live stream here. All right, we got some people in the chat, so it looks like we're good. If you guys can't hear me or anything like that, just let me know. I'm looking at my YouTube thing here, and it's saying that I've got bad video settings or something. So if you guys can't see me or hear me, just let me know. I'll keep running through these guys though. So Zay Jones is one of my sleeper wide receiver picks. Going to be the Bills' number 2 receiver probably behind Matthews, but looked pretty good in the preseason. They don't have too many other receivers there, so I think he could get some looks. He's cheap. He's 3,500 this week, so definitely a risky play, but someone I'll be playing in some GPP lineups. Evan Engram, especially if Odell Beckham Jr. is out, I like Engram quite a bit at tight end, but with Ertz being a clear number 1 play in my opinion, it's tough to fit him in there unless you want to go with the double stack at tight end. But that's definitely an option. He's cheaper, and he might get quite a few more looks if Beckham's out. Fedorowicz for the Texans, I kind of tweeted something out about this yesterday. He's probably going to get a lot of targets today. He's coming off a concussion, so maybe a little risky, but I think he'll get a lot of targets, so he could get 1 or 2 touchdowns and put up a pretty good score. So those are my picks for this week. Let me just minimize that, and we'll get to the Fantasy Labs dashboard. All right, so I see there's some questions here. We'll go through those first before I get to the Fantasy Labs trends. Just going to mess around on the trends tool for week 1. Someone said, should I stack Antonio Brown and Big Ben? Definitely like that. It's pretty high priced, but they're the biggest favorites on the board, and they have the highest team total. And obviously, Antonio Brown's one of the best receivers out there. So definitely like that. I think that's always in play pretty much every week. Even if they do have a tough matchup, there's reason to stack them in GPPs. Someone says audio kind of low. I'll try to talk a bit louder. Someone else said we can't hear you. Let's see what I can do here. I think my volume's up as loud as it can be, so I'll try to talk a bit louder. Let me know if that's better. You're very low. Yeah, it's something to do with the video settings here on YouTube. This is my first time doing a live stream in a while. Let's see. Sorry, I'm just messing around on the back end here trying to turn the volume up. I'll just try to talk louder. I don't know how to fix it right now, so for now I'll try to talk louder. If I'm too loud, let me know. Someone says, what about Kirk Cousins? I think he's a great under-the-radar play. He had a great fantasy season last year, pretty consistent. Definitely someone I like. Kirk Cousins, I don't think I have enough of him yet, but I do have some lineups with him. Like him quite a bit. Someone says, what do you think about Powell? Bilal Powell is someone that I really like, but it's tough to play him too much with Forte probably being the number one running back there. So that's a very tough play. I definitely like Powell, especially if Forte gets injured in the future. And I definitely would probably throw him in a couple lineups if you're doing multiple lineups if you like him. But he's definitely a risky play with Forte being the number one back there. Derek Carr and Crabtree or Mariota and Matthews for cash games. Personally, I'm going Mariota Matthews, just cheaper stack. But I don't mind Carr and Crabtree. I think they should both have big games as well. Someone said for cash, Brandon Marshall and Fitz or Cooper and Robbie Anderson. I don't really like Robbie Anderson for cash. The Jets aren't expected to score a lot of points. You don't know what their offense is going to be like. So I'd go with Marshall and Fitz. Someone said bust alert Ty Montgomery. I can see where you're coming from, but I like him as a GPP play. Relatively cheap, and the Packers should score quite a few points this week. And if they get the ball inside maybe the 5-yard line, that he could be running the ball. So I like Montgomery personally. I know it's risky, but I'll be on him a bit this week. Someone said Larry Fitzgerald or Kelvin Benjamin. Larry definitely is projected for more points, and I would normally go with Larry. If it's a cash game, I'd probably go Larry, but for GPPs, his ownership looks to be really high, so I would probably go Kelvin Benjamin. That's what I'm doing this week. I've got more Kelvin Benjamin than Larry just for the ownership. But if you really like Larry, I wouldn't talk you away from him. That's a really cheap price for a number one. Jaguars defense at 4,100. I'm guessing that is on FanDuel. I like the Jags defense. I like both defenses in that game. Beckham's risky. If you're playing FanDuel, I wouldn't play him. If you're playing on DraftKings, you can put him in the flex and swap out. Someone said Carr and GPP. Yep, definitely like Carr. Wentz in cash. Personally, I wouldn't go Wentz in cash, but I know a lot of people are on him. Just my personal opinion, I would probably just spend a bit more money on one of the better quarterbacks. But if you want to go cheap, I don't mind the play at all. I do like some of the Eagles pass catchers, including Ertz. Someone said better wide receiver 2 start, standard Bryant or Pryor. So I think you're just talking about normal fantasy. I'd go Dez Bryant. I think his matchup is a little worse, but just overall, Bryant for me, I'd take the better receiver there. Although I do like Pryor this week on DraftKings. Someone said Carr. Yeah, definitely like Carr. I don't have too much of Carr, which kind of worries me. But I do like him. I went more Mariota in that game. Do you think McCaffrey's going to have a good game? Yeah, I kind of talked about that on Twitter. I wish he was a bit cheaper on DraftKings. I think he's going to have a good game. I don't know if he's going to pay off that salary. I think someone like Montgomery could outscore him, and he's, I think, $400 more expensive and will probably be lower owned. But I do want some shares of McCaffrey. I think he could have a big game. I think he's going to have a big year and just be a good NFL running back. So I do like McCaffrey. I wouldn't talk you off him at all, and I'll be playing him as well. Kaiser and Coleman all day. Not a big fan of that. I like the Steelers D this week. Normally don't like to run two tight ends, but what do you think about Ertz and Fedorowicz? I think you could do that. There's not too many really cheap receivers, so if you only have around $3,000 or $3,100 to spend in your flex, you could go with Fedorowicz. What are some cheap receivers? So I already talked about, I like Zay Jones, I like Rashard Matthews, Taylor Gabriel, someone I was looking at, Lockett. Why Montgomery against the Seahawks? Just because the Packers are expected to score somewhere around 4 touchdowns. I think their implied team total is like 26 points. If they do score 4 touchdowns, Montgomery could definitely have 2 of those if they're in the red zone in there tight. And he can also catch passes out of the backfield as well. So I think he's a risky play, but that's why I like him. How about Procise and Antonio Brown? I don't really like Procise. Not sure where he's going to fit in that offense yet. Definitely like Antonio Brown every week. I'm not on him too much this week, which kind of worries me. But I love Antonio Brown in fantasy in general. Someone said Hyde. Yeah, that was one of the guys I mentioned. Definitely like Hyde. He's probably my top cheap running back play. Heavy owned defenses. I think the Rams are going to be heavily owned. I think the Texans will be heavily owned, and probably the Bills will be the next. Those would be my top 3 guesses. Someone said, is Carr a good cash play? Yep, I think he's a good cash play. I personally didn't go with him, but I don't mind him at that price. I think that game's going to be pretty high scoring. Someone said Jordan Matthews or Zay Jones. I'm not sure of Jordan Matthews' price on DraftKings. I think it's around like 4,500. I'm going to be on Zay Jones just because he's cheaper. How many lineups do you submit? I'm going to throw 150 into the Millie Maker. Not going to do that every week, but in week 1 I'm going to do that. So usually, I'm usually multi-entering. Usually have somewhere around 100 lineups. This week I'm going with 150. Someone else said they can't really hear me. Sorry guys, there's nothing I can really do right now. I don't know how to fix that. I'm just trying to talk a bit louder. Sterling Shepard, the GGD. Not sure what that means, but Sterling Shepard could get some more looks if Beckham's out. Brandon Marshall is going to do good, or you think Brandon Marshall is going to do good? I could see him having a big game with Beckham if Beckham's out. I definitely like Marshall. I like Engram at tight end there as well. Delaney Walker and Ertz stack. You could stack 2 tight ends. I don't mind the double tight end stack if you're getting some salary relief with someone cheaper like Ertz at 3,500 instead of one of the cheaper wide receivers. Usually wide receivers have more upside, but I like Ertz at that price for sure. Someone says Bortles. I won't be on Bortles until he proves himself again, but definitely going to be very, very low owned if you want to throw that in a big field GPP. Eli, Marshall, or Shepard stack. I'd go Marshall. People are forgetting how good Brandon Marshall is or was in the past, and I think he can do that again with a good quarterback. I think he's 5,100 or something ridiculous this week, so very cheap for Brandon Marshall. Definitely like him. I'm not sure if I like him with an Eli stack, but definitely will be low owned, so that might be a good GPP play. Could Bilal Powell hit 4 times value? Yeah, I think he could if they're down a lot and they start throwing the ball a lot, but I think Forte is going to get a lot of snaps, so I probably wouldn't have Bilal Powell in cash games. Someone said Theo Riddick. I'm not sure what to do with the Detroit backfield right now. Like Riddick or Abdullah could have big games, so it's kind of risky, but that's more of a GPP play. I wouldn't throw him in cash. Someone said Clay at tight end. Personally, I have no Clay, but I've heard some people talk about him. I won't talk you out of it, but I think there are better options personally. Zeke at flex and then pivot to OBJ if he plays. Is that a good play? I think that's a good play. Yeah, you could leave yourself some salary there and pivot. Zeke might be a decent play, probably a pretty low own this week. I'm not sure if he's going to get the full amount of snaps, but he should be ready to go. Fournette to put up at least 15 DraftKings points versus the Texans. Yeah, I think he could do that. It's a little more risky, but I don't mind it for a GPP play. I think he could put up 15. Someone said Larry Fitzgerald, Pryor, or run Mariota, Matthews, and Crabtree at wide receiver cash game on FanDuel. That's a loaded question, but I'm going Mariota and Matthews in my cash game lineup, so I'd probably go with that, and I don't mind Crabtree this week at all. I think he's kind of risky for cash, Crabtree. I'd maybe make him more of a GPP play, but I do like the Mariota Matthews stack, and then if you could bring it back with Crabtree, I guess that's a decent cash game stack. But I also like that in GPPs. How much of your 150 lineups is GPP and how much is cash? So what I'm doing this week is I'm going to throw 150 lineups into the Millie Maker, and then I'm just going to have one cash line. I'm going to play probably multiple head-to-heads, but with just one cash lineup. What do you think about Randall Cobb as a low-owned GPP play? Yeah, definitely like Cobb. He's my 3rd pick at receiver there in Green Bay, but I think the Packers could have a big day today, and Cobb definitely could be the one scoring the touchdowns if they do have a big day. So I don't mind Cobb at all as a GPP play. He'd be my 3rd pick behind Nelson and Adams, but don't mind him. Tevin Coleman for running back. I don't like Tevin Coleman just because he's sharing the backfield with Freeman. I think Freeman's going to get more touches than Coleman, but we know Coleman does have that upside, so he can have big weeks. And yeah, I don't mind him against Chicago in a good matchup. But personally, I would go Freeman. But I guess if you're looking for a discount and a low-owned play, Coleman might be a decent play. Someone says Gurley a good play. Pretty much everyone is talking about Gurley. So I do think he's a good play. Personally, I'm not on him too much just because of ownership, and I kind of pivoted to some other players, including Montgomery. A little more risky, but that's kind of how I play. But I think a player is going to be really highly owned. Sometimes I'll pivot off them. Someone says they can hear me fine, so that's good. I'm trying to talk a bit louder. I'll try to figure out the audio difficulties for next week. I've got about 6 more minutes here. I want to finish off some lineups and tweak some lineups before 1 o'clock. Someone else said mic volume's low, so yeah, definitely figure that out, guys. Sorry about that. Someone said Eagles or Giants defense. I don't really like the Giants defense on the road in prime time against Dallas, so I'd go Eagles. Lamar Miller, underrated GPP play, home favorite, and 20-plus carries. Yeah, I think he's definitely underrated for a GPP play, but personally I'm not on him. But I could see where you're coming from. Scott Tolzien, no, I won't be taking Scott Tolzien. Someone said Eli and Shepard stack. Definitely a cheap stack and maybe very low owned, so you could give it a try. But yeah, personally, I'm not going to be on Eli this week. I think there's better options at quarterback. Someone said Brian Hoyer and Pierre Garçon. That's a stack that I have a couple lineups with. Don't mind it for the price. Someone said Martavis Bryant, ? Yeah, definitely like Martavis Bryant. I think his price is a little bit too high, so I wouldn't play him in cash games at all. I wouldn't touch him there, but definitely GPP play. I think one of the Steelers are going to have a huge game. I don't know if it's going to be Brown, maybe Bryant, or Bell. Good quarterback receiver stacks. So again, I'll show you guys my picks really quick here, and then I will go into Fantasy Labs and show you guys what the trends tools are like. I'm not sure what I'm going to do for a trend, but we'll figure it out. So those are the picks there, my video picks and my other picks that I emailed out. If I had to pick Brown or Holmes, a couple more questions here, guys, and then I'll switch over to Fantasy Labs. Same price, Cooper and Anderson or Marshall and Fitz? Yeah, I already talked about that. I think I'd go Marshall and Fitz, especially if we're talking cash games. Someone said better stack in cash, Wilson to Baldwin or Ryan to Jones. For cash, depends kind of how your roster construction goes. I think Matt Ryan to Jones is pretty safe, but it's going to be more expensive. So it depends on how you want to do that. If you want to jam in the expensive running backs, you probably want to go Wilson to Baldwin. Someone said Kevin White. Yeah, I like him as a GPP play. A lot of people are talking about Wright as well from Chicago. But I think Kevin White's a decent GPP play. Wouldn't touch him in cash. Randall Cobb or Devontae Adams. I already talked about that. I would go Adams. Pick one: Crowder, Bryant, Crabtree, or Decker. I'd have to go Crabtree. I'd go Crabtree. Don't mind Decker. Then I'd probably go Bryant, Crowder. I think in that order. Even with DJ in the lineup, it's okay to go Marshall and Fitz. Yeah, you could stack Fitzgerald with David Johnson. Maybe wouldn't do that in cash, though. Robbie Anderson or Brandon LaFell. For me, it's Robbie Anderson there. What percentage of your lineups in the Millie Maker fade DJ and Bell both? Not too many, but I wouldn't know that off the top of my head. I usually have one of the two in there. But there's a lot. I guess I do have quite a few lineups with McCoy as well. So I like all three of the expensive running backs. Crabtree is a good receiver. Yeah, Crabtree maybe still underrated, even though he had a big season last year. A lot of people are going to be on Cooper. You could pivot to Crabtree. Last one, DeAndre Hopkins as a sneak play. Yeah, definitely going to be sneaky. I'm not on it personally, but again, he's a great receiver. I have him in my fantasy team, my regular fantasy team. So I think he could have, he's due to have a big game here soon, even in a tough matchup, so it could be this week. Jordan Matthews, personally not on him, but I don't mind him. He is the number 1 option there. Who's your top cash games quarterbacks? So I messed around with cash games a lot. I had Rodgers in there for a bit. I went down cheap to Stafford. I went down cheap to Hoyer. And the best lineup I think that I came up with, that I decided to go with, was Mariota and Rashard Matthews. So that's what I went with. How much do you diversify your lineups on Fantasy Labs? So I usually set the diversify slider to about 7 or 8, depending. I usually mess around with it a little bit, but I like to try to be pretty diverse. I usually have a pretty big player pool compared to some people who play tighter player pools. Do you like Danny Woodhead? I don't really love him this week in the matchup on the road, but he's someone I'll be wanting to play in the future. Hopefully he doesn't go off this week because I do think he could be a sneaky play in the future. Do you like Dalton, Green, Eifert stack? Yeah, I think I threw one stack with all 3 of them in there because I do like Green and I don't mind Dalton. But yeah, it's not likely that all 3 of those guys have big games against the Ravens. Somewhat tough matchup, but I do like that for GPPs. Can we see your cash lineup? No, you can't, in case I'm playing one of you guys in cash head-to-head. You guys all know my username, so it shows you who you're playing against. So if it comes down to a late flex, or if it comes down to the later games where I have to swap out a player or whatever, you could, if you knew my lineup, you could swap out your players, and you would know who I had. So no, you can't see my cash lineups. But I did tell you my quarterback wide receiver stack: Mariota, Matthews. Someone said Marvin Jones Jr. He's ranking high in my model, but I'm not on him. I don't know if that's a mistake or not, because I usually do play the guys who are ranking high in my models. Mariota to Walker. Yeah, I don't mind that. I'm not on Delaney Walker. I don't even think I have him in one lineup because I've got so much of Rashard Matthews and a bit of Decker. I just kind of took a gamble that they're going to be the ones scoring touchdowns if Mariota's throwing them. But I like Walker overall. He's a great player, great tight end. Mariota likes to throw to him, so I don't mind that at all. Yeah, Brandon Marshall could be one of the best plays of the week, with Beckham most likely being out. Is Ertz a lock for cash games? Yeah, that's probably the first guy I would lock in personally is Ertz, but I don't think you have to lock him in your cash games. You could go a different route, but I think Ertz in cash is going to be like, I don't know, 80% owned or something. All right, guys. So a couple more minutes here. I wanted to mess around here and see if we can find any week 1 quarterbacks, or maybe even September quarterbacks. So let's see. Let's start off with September quarterbacks. So we're looking at, I think we've got, what do we got here? NFL season. So we've got 3 years of data. We're looking at quarterbacks playing in September. Just want to show you guys kind of the Fantasy Labs trends tool that I love to play around with. So we've got it set to quarterback. We've got it set to the game was played in September. And then I'm going to go to player name and look at the quarterbacks here. And I'm going to sort it by average points. So these are quarterbacks that perform really well in September. It could be due to their matchups and all that, so I wouldn't look at it too much, and it's only over 3 years, so we don't have a huge sample size, but it's something interesting to look at. So you can see here Aaron Rodgers usually starts off the season good. Luck is out this week. Matt Ryan, we've got Cam Newton, Carson Palmer. So Carson Palmer might be an underrated play. Let's see if we can find some quarterbacks that struggle. So Josh McCown looks like he struggles a bit. He'll be low owned anyways. Let's see if we've got any other starters here. Mike Glennon. So Derek Carr hasn't had good Septembers. He's had 10 September games. He's averaging 16.83 points. Again, you got to look at matchups and stuff as well. But let's see if we can filter this out. Let's go with these. What do we got here? 7 quarterbacks. And then let's go to projections. What else do I want to look at here? Let's go to trends. And let's look at opponent rating. So we want let's say 70 to 99, so they're in a pretty good matchup. And we've got two here, Stafford and Breeze. Looking at this trend here, you can see that the quarterbacks are averaging 22.27 points, 57% consistency, so not a high consistency rate, relatively low ownership. So right there, you might look at Stafford and think he might be a decent play. Again, this isn't the best trend. I wouldn't use this too much. It's a small sample size, looking at games in September with a good matchup, and we kind of cherry-picked the top quarterbacks. But if you look again, so looking at quarterbacks with great matchups in September, we've got a few other guys in here. So if we add in these guys, yeah, neither of those guys match it, but what if we move this down to 60? Yeah, so Carson Palmer matches it. So I think Palmer and Stafford would be good plays. Again, I just wanted to mess around with the trends tool and show you guys what you guys can do with the Fantasy Labs trends tool. We can even go to week 1. Let's see. Where are we here? So game number. We'll look at quarterbacks, how they perform in week 1. So again, a lot of the good quarterbacks who perform well in September overall, for the most part, these guys are performing well in week 1 as well. The best being Aaron Rodgers, and I think Matt Ryan was up there for September as well. So Matt Ryan and Aaron Rodgers are two guys that I think they're in good matchups. Over the last 3 years, they've done well in week 1s. Oh, no wonder I didn't set it to 1 there. For some reason, I went back to 4. All right, oh my God. Can't type here. Let's try this again. For some reason, it's not loading in game 1. Let's try. Maybe I have to go 0 to 1. My keyboard's messed up here. Okay, that should work. All right, so now let's look at game 1s. So yeah, let's see. Aaron Rodgers drops a little bit, 19.07. Again, could just be the matchups. But Matt Ryan, Matthew Stafford, known for big week 1s. Carson Palmer. I'll get back to your guys' questions in a second here. I'm just messing around here on the Fantasy Labs Trends tool. I just want to see guys that are in good matchups. So instead of looking at the opponent plus minus, let's look at guys with a good Vegas score. So let's find that here. Here it is. All right, so guys with good Vegas scores, we're gonna go 60 and above. So these quarterbacks who have performed well overall the last 3 years in week 1, when they're in a good spot according to Vegas, so that's looking at their team total, the line movement, the spread, all of that. So when they're in a pretty good matchup, they're averaging 26.84 points, pretty consistent. They've got a consistency 61%, plus 6.71 points. So these guys are guys that I would definitely play this week, just based on that trend. They're in good spots because the Vegas percentile is set between 60 and 99, and they've done well in week 1. So I wouldn't look at it too much, but that's something that I would kind of look at and maybe throw a couple GPP lineups in, just based off a trend like that. So Stafford and Ryan are two guys that I like this week. Let's see if we move this up. If they're in really good, see if any of these guys are in really good Vegas, or really good matchups according to Vegas. So Matt Ryan, Carson Palmer, and Cam Newton all fit this criteria. And if we go back up to the actual points scored, they're averaging 27.52. These quarterbacks listed here, week 1, with a good Vegas score. So those are the type of things you can do in the Fantasy Labs Trends tools. If you guys don't have an account at Fantasy Labs, I've got my link in the description below. So check that out for sure. Going to answer a couple more questions here and then get to my own lineups here. We've got 20 minutes, so I've only got a couple minutes here to answer some questions. Let's scroll down here. Best kicker. I'm not playing any FanDuel this week, so I'm not sure about kickers. Someone said Tyrod Taylor. I actually don't mind Tyrod Taylor. I don't know if I ended up putting in the lineup with him in there, but I don't mind him this week at the price. A good running back. We've got all the top running backs, so Johnson, Bell, McCoy. They're definitely good running backs. A lot of people are talking about Gurley. I like Montgomery at that price. I like Hyde for a cheap running back. Lots of good running back options out there. I think popular play is going to be to pay up at running back this week. Seahawks haven't won in Green Bay since '99. Yeah, I wouldn't look at that too much, but I do like Green Bay this week. I do think it's going to be pretty high scoring. So I think that game's got some fantasy goodness in it. Do I like Goodwin? I've got a couple lineups with Goodwin in there just because he's so cheap and he could score a long touchdown. Don't love him, but if you're throwing multiple lineups in, you might want to take a shot with someone like Goodwin. Personally, I don't have any Marshawn Lynch. I'm going to kind of watch, see how he plays. Could be a mistake because I think that game will be high scoring. So if you do have Lynch, I think he will be low owned and he could have a big game. What do I think of Mike Wallace? I think I threw him in one lineup. Don't like him too much at all, but I think I did a stack with Dalton and then brought it back with Mike Wallace. Albert said he's doing a lineup with Le'Veon Bell and David Johnson, and he's sticking Ertz and Fedorowicz in. I think that is a decent play going with two cheap tight ends, and then it allows you to spend up elsewhere like running back. All right, guys. Last question here. Would you pair David Johnson with Larry Fitzgerald? I think in GPPs you would. In cash games, I'd probably just pick one of the two. So that's it, guys. Hopefully this video, hopefully I answered some of your questions. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you subscribe if you're not already. And hopefully you win $1 million this week if you're entering the Millie Maker. If you're not, hopefully you win whatever contest you're entering. Good luck this week, guys, and let's get it.